How do I even begin to help those here with us today understand the greatness that is Sherry Dessort? A wonderful wife, a lover, and my very best friend. The one who knows all my quirks, my moods, my faults, and loves me still. The mother of our children, the woman who has helped mold them into three of the most wonderful human beings parents could ever dream of. A teacher, no, more than that. A builder of children, and not just any children, children with special needs, those some mistakenly consider the least of these. Children whose only desire is to be like everyone else. Through it all, the triumphs, the setbacks, the pain and the joy, you return to them every year, knowing every single day will be a new trial for them and for you. And yet you go because you are called to take them to a place that no one else can. That is, one step further, day after day, year after year. I think of our life together and how I first met you. You were a toddler teacher at Brookhaven, and we had those wonderful one-way mirrors for students to observe children. I would find any opportunity to make my way to those one-way mirrors, just to steal a glance at the woman I was falling in love with, hoping she would fall for me too. And you did. Eventually. Persistence pays off. Then we married, madly in love, and learned to adjust to each other. That was a growing experience. Soon after came our first child, Carissa, followed by a move to Germany and more children, John and Micah. And once again, you gladly paid the price of laying down your own career dreams and chose to raise our children in a foreign land where we knew no one. Perhaps you did, but I do not remember a single instance where you complained. You gladly poured your life into our children every day, growing them, nurturing them, loving them, and helping them become kind and compassionate people. Now here we are, more than halfway through our lives, wondering what the Lord has in store for us, ready to go where He leads. You've made our house a home, a place of warmth, kindness, love, and joy. Your children call you blessed and marvel at your strength of character, never wavering from your beliefs or morals, a rare thing in this day and age. And I would have to live 100 lives to deserve you. And yet you love me. Know this, quiet and strong woman. Your friends and family love and adore you, and we are honored that you choose to share your life in this special day with us. We love you so very much. Happy birthday, my love.
A few poems by Jack Puletsky. The New Kid on the Block. There's a new kid on the block, and boy, that kid is tough. That new kid punches hard, that new kid plays real rough. That new kid's big and strong, with muscles everywhere. That new kid tweaked my arm, that new kid pulled my hair. That new kid likes to fight, and picks on all the guys. That new kid scares me some, that new kid's twice my size. That new kid stomped my toes, that new kid swiped my ball. That new kid's really bad, I don't care for her at all. Clara Cleach. The poorest juggler ever seen was clumsy Clara Cleach, who juggled a bean, a nectarine, a pumpkin, and a peach. She juggled a stone, a slide trombone, a celery stalk, a stick, a seeded roll, a salad bowl, a bagel, a boot, a brick. With relative ease, she juggled a cheese. She juggled a lock, a lime. Yes, Clara juggled all of these, but just one at a time. I wonder why Dad is so thoroughly mad. I wonder why Dad is so thoroughly mad. I can't understand it at all, unless it's the bee still afloat in his tea, or his underwear pinned to the wall. Perhaps it's the dye on his favorite tie, or the mousetrap that snapped in his shoe, or the pipe full of gum that he found with his thumb, or the toilet sealed tightly with glue. It can't be the bread crumbled up in his bed, or the slugs someone left in the hall. I wonder why Dad is so thoroughly mad. I can't understand it at all.
Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind or another, his mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, "I'll eat you up." So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night in Max's room a forest grew and grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around, and an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through the night and day and in and out of weeks and almost a year to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars, and gnashed their terrible teeth, and rolled their terrible eyes, and showed their terrible claws, till Max said, "Be still!" and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once, and they were frightened, and called him the most wild thing of all, and made him king of all wild things. "And now," cried Max, "let the wild rumpus start." "Now stop," Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all wild things, was lonely, and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around from away across the world he smelled good things to eat, so he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go, we'll eat you up, we'll love you so." And Max said, "No." The wild things roared their terrible roars, and gnashed their terrible teeth, and rolled their terrible eyes, and showed their terrible claws, but Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye, and sailed back over a year, and in and out of weeks, and through the day, and into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him, and it was still hot.
Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson. One evening, after thinking it over for some time, Harold decided to go for a walk in the moonlight. There wasn't any moon, and Harold needed a moon for a walk in the moonlight, and he needed something to walk on. He made a long straight path so he wouldn't get lost, and he set off on his walk, taking his big purple crayon with him. But he didn't seem to be getting anywhere on the long straight path, so he left the path for a shortcut across the field, and the moon went with him. The shortcut led right to where Harold thought a forest ought to be. He didn't want to get lost in the woods, so he made a very small forest, with just one tree in it. It turned out to be an apple tree. The apples would be very tasty, Harold thought, when they got red. So he put a frightening dragon under the tree to guard the apples. It was a terribly frightening dragon. It even frightened Harold. He backed away. His hand holding the purple crayon shook. Suddenly he realized what was happening. But by then Harold was over his head in an ocean. He came up thinking fast, and in no time he was climbing aboard a trim little boat. He quickly set sail, and the moon sailed along with him. After he had sailed long enough, Harold made land without much trouble. He stepped ashore on the beach, wondering where he was. The sandy beach reminded Harold of picnics, and the thought of picnics made him hungry, so he laid out a nice, simple picnic lunch. There was nothing but pie, and there were all 9 kinds of pie that Harold liked best. When Harold finished his picnic, there was quite a lot left. He hated to see so much delicious pie go to waste. So Harold left a very hungry moose and a deserving porcupine to finish it up, and off he went, looking for a hill to climb to see where he was. Harold knew that the higher up he went, the farther he could see, so he decided to make a hill into a mountain. If he went high enough, he thought, he could see the window of his bedroom. He was tired, and he felt he ought to be getting to bed. He hoped he could see his bedroom window from the top of the mountain. But as he looked down over the other side, he slipped, and there wasn't any other side of the mountain. He was falling in thin air. But luckily he kept his wits and his purple crayon. He made a balloon, and he grabbed onto it, and he made a basket under the balloon big enough to stand in. He had a fine view from the balloon, but he couldn't see his window. He couldn't even see a house. So he made a house, with windows, and he landed the balloon on the grass in the front yard. None of the windows was his window. He tried to think where his window ought to be. He made some more windows. He made a big building full of windows. He made lots of buildings full of windows. He made a whole city full of windows. But none of the windows was his window. He couldn't think where it might be. He decided to ask a policeman. The policeman pointed the way Harold was going anyway, but Harold thanked him. And he walked along with the moon, wishing he was in his room and in bed. Then suddenly Harold remembered. He remembered where his bedroom window was when there was a moon. It was always right around the moon. And then Harold made his bed. He got in it, and he drew up the covers. The purple crayon dropped on the floor, and Harold dropped off to sleep.